Hey, what's going on everybody? My name's Philip. Welcome back to another track guide video, and today we're going to take a look at the ARCA cars around New Hampshire Motor Speedway. This has been a pretty heavily requested guide by those of you that comment, so I do appreciate that. And those of you that don't comment, I can still hear your screams about New Hampshire, so this is also for you. I know you're screaming because I'm screaming, because for some reason this track just feels really wonky and weird to me. I can't really put my finger on why. I don't know if it's the fact that the cars feel really difficult to save off of the corner, but in like a very surprising way, or if it's the fact that you have to drive the car into the corner in such an odd way so that it gets really loose on entry, or what. So I guess I just put my finger on why. But anyway, take a second to look over some things to note here. So number one, there's less banking in the bottom lane, so it's really difficult to get the car to turn down there, and it can also really upset the car if you cross over that like first and second lane mid corner. Shifting can be really helpful. I have found that mid corner it helps me balance the car better if I do downshift into third, and then do a quick upshift back into fourth after I kind of want to exit the corner. Try to keep the car loose mid-corner. You want the back of the car to feel a little bit unsettled because it's important to hold a bit of a slip angle around the corner, which leads us to point 4. You have to be pretty careful and steady with your throttle inputs since the back of the car is already pretty loose. It's very easy to get too loose coming out of the corner and get all kinds of squirrely and knock down the wall. And then also need to talk about steering ratio and brake bias. And here's where we get down to the kind of personal preference-y stuff. I like the feel of the 12-to-1 steering ratio here more than I like the 14-to-1 box, because the 14-to-1 box makes it very, very difficult to save the car if it starts getting really loose and tail happy out of the corner. However, I think the 12-to-1 box makes you use a little bit more front tire, but it doesn't seem like it's too big of a difference. And I like to start with a brake bias of about 61, which I might dial back by 0.5% if I feel the car get a little bit too tight into the corner and I don't like how it's entering. But I'm going to recommend a 62 or less here just because I know that the further back you put the brakes, the looser and kind of more difficult it is to get the car into the corner because it starts to really feel like the nose and the tail want to just swap places. So try 62, and if you get to where you're used to that and kind of like it, dial it back just a little bit more, and that might help you gain a little bit more speed on your corner entry. Alright, at this point I feel like I've done enough talking. I'm going to give your ears a break, and we'll watch the hot lap. Okay, now for the in-depth. So you want to get a really good run out of 4 to start your lap. So what you'll do is utilize this high side of the track. You can get up here, the car gets a little bit loose, right past this New Hampshire Motor Speedway sign, get back to the throttle, and the car is going to loosen up a bit, and you want it to turn down until you just about get to this banking in the bottom of the track, but not quite. And then you can really get a good run out. Play with the steering because the back of the car is going to feel pretty loose. You really don't want to get into that bottom lane because it makes the car really want to go straight, and it wants to ride out and knock down the outside wall, so I don't think you want that. Now we're looking for the 2 board that's on the fence, and right as you get near it, that's when you want to start braking and kind of start your turn in. So here, I've gave the steering a little bit of a jolt so that the back of the car feels a little loose, and I'm on the brakes, holding them into the corner. because I want to keep some weight on the nose of the car. And as I downshift, I kind of kick the car loose again, and now I'm putting on maintenance throttle so that I can keep the car turning. If I don't have enough maintenance throttle on, the car straightens up too much and really wants to ride out and hit the wall again. There's also this bump here that might make the car jolt loose. And when you feel like you can put the power down, quickly upshift into fourth and then put the power down, because that's going to help you keep that same trajectory that you had built by being in third gear. And so you can really power it out of the corner and it'll stay turning and not hit the wall. If you stay in third gear and try to put the power down, I find that the car gets a bit too loose. So turning into turn 3 and 4, it's really the same story as turns 1 and 2. You want to keep that same momentum, that same kind of loose feeling, use some tire slip at the back here, use a lot of maintenance throttle, and then as you put the power down, upshift into fourth and then put the power down. And once again, the car is going to feel very, very loose out of this corner. But you can put the power down and that should set you up for a pretty decent lap. Now, I don't know if everybody's doing it this way, but this is what I've found has worked for me. So I think with this track, more than a lot of them, I think your mileage is going to vary on how useful the track guide is. But I hope it's still helpful. Moving on then to some do's and don'tses. To be completely honest, I had to look that up to see if I'd used the right amount of apostrophes, and even English majors argue about it, so it's do's and don'tses. First of these little things is taking a look at the low line banking or lack of banking versus the second lane is you can see how flat it is down here, and as we drive the car up, you can see the track really picks up banking. So if you're on this flatter portion, the car just wants to go straight. It does not want to really corner. I know in real life they can kind of utilize this by being half above and half below and all this kinds of stuff, but with this setup this week, it doesn't really work, so it's best to just stay off of it because it's not really going to help you at all this week. Next thing to note is when to shift in the corner. So if you shift too soon, the car gets really out of shape, and if you shift too late, it gets out of shape. So driving down here, right there. So what I'm waiting for is once I throw the car into the corner and it feels pretty loose, it'll almost start to feel like it doesn't want to turn quite as well. That's when I try to downshift, because that's going to kind of kick those rear tires a little bit right there and make it kind of cut the corner a little bit better. If you downshift too soon, then you're going to kick too many RPMs and the car is going to want to spin out. And if you downshift too late, like as you're already trying to get back to the throttle or want to throttle up, then it can make the car get really loose out like that as well. But you do have to be careful because sometimes the car doesn't want to go back into fourth gear, so do be aware of that if you're shifting. Now with me, here's an example of if I don't shift, I feel like I just can't get the car to turn and change directions here. And when I get back to the throttle, it just doesn't cut and it really wants to ride out to the outside wall. And give the wall just a little bit of a kiss, even though it's not Valentine's Day yet. So there's a couple different things that can happen in the mid-corner phase if you pick up the throttle too early. The first one would be that as you try to accelerate, the weight shifts to the rear of the car and there's less of the weight on the front of the car, so the car stops turning as well as you hope and it can ride out towards the wall. The other thing that can happen is if you have a lot of steering input in the car, then when you get after the throttle really hard to make it turn, then it turns too much and it wants to spin out, and then like we've said at the beginning of the video, it's really tough to save the car once it starts getting loose. And like right here, here's an example of just too much throttle and you're going to end up Tokyo drifting yourself through the turn. And the last little thing to note here is having too hot of a corner entry or being too low. So when you drive the car in, you don't want to carry like a bunch of extra corner speed and put a load on the front wheels, because then it's going to do this and just not really turn. So if you want to drive these corners hard, you kind of have to get the car real loose on entry and just trust that it's going to grip up. Then alternatively, if you get too low, like we've said before, so if you get down here where the car flattens out, see it takes off towards the wall. So you got to be aware of that too, especially if you have somebody on your outside and you're trying to make a pass. Definitely don't want that to happen, because you might ride up and hit them into somebody or wreck everybody. And that is all the tips for this video. I really hope that you got something out of this one, because this guide was very difficult for me to make. It was really difficult for me to try to figure out why the car was doing certain things, and just explain my thought process going through the corners. So this was a real challenge for me to make. I had a good time making it because I do like when I have to think so far outside of my regular box, so to speak, to get around a track. So I started this week not really liking this track at all. By the time I finished the guide, I actually think I kind of enjoy it now. So I've covered everything in my notes. I really hope I didn't leave anything out. So once again, just thank you all so much, you awesome people, for being here to watch these guides. I really do appreciate it. Let me know how your race week is going in the comments. If there's anything you want to see or any more questions that you have, I'm happy to try to help out as much as I can. Have a good one, everybody. I will see you all in the next guide. Take care.